Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com. I'm really pleased to welcome you all to today's session. It's a bit of a different format for us, and we're really excited for it. It's a solution showcase for Dynamics GP. We have four great presenters on the line representing four different solutions that work with and in complementary to Dynamics GP. I'm going to just take a minute here to tell you a little bit more about today's format and very briefly introduce the presenters, and then we'll launch into it. So we're going to give, the intent of this session is to give you a very quick and efficient look at four different value propositions for solutions in the Dynamics GP space. Each of our presenters coming up is going to have 12 minutes to just give you an introduction to who they are and what they offer, and we're going to save time at the end for questions. So please write down your questions as we go. Look for the Q&A block. You should see to the right of the main presentation area. If you don't see the Q&A on the right, look for a question mark in the upper right corner of WebEx and click that to enable it if you need to. We'll be making time for as many questions as we can at the end. So we look forward to that. Just give you a little sense of who our presenters are today. We're going to be starting actually with Sarah Chowdhury of MineralTree, moving on to Zubin from Dynamic Budgets, and Mary Miller from QuickTag, and finally Glenn McPeak of Data Masons will be the final presenter today. So like I said, each one of them will have 12 minutes. We appreciate any questions and all your attention from our four presenters today. So I think without any further delay, we're going to get started. I'm going to make Sarah the presenter here and give her the floor. So Sarah, you just need to open up your phone line, and the floor is yours. Maybe I'll do that for you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah. I'm from MineralTree, and I'm excited to talk about how our school can really help with automating your AP and how it integrates so beautifully with Great Plains. That's the goal here. So I'm going to time myself as much as possible because there's a lot I want to talk about, and obviously I want to give you a peek into the product as well. So, excuse me, please write down any questions you have as they come up. So, MineralTree, just a little bit about us, just to get started. We are in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We've been around since 2010, and we've been partners with Great Plains since the very beginning. In addition to being the go-to AP automation tool for over 1,000 companies, probably closer to like 1,500, including really interesting companies like the Boston Celtics. I know if you guys watched this past weekend, you know what's going on with them. But we have really, really cool customers, all fast growing, and we're also sold through a number of banks. So with accounts payable, the first thing that comes to mind is probably security and how to make sure people aren't committing fraud and doing that kind of stuff, and the fact that we are sold through banks should hopefully relieve any concerns. We've done our homework, and we're very, very, our tool works very, very well to keep everything secure. So just a little bit about us, and then these are just some of the clients that we have, also Amplify Snacks, and any business basically that has accounts payable could benefit from AP automation. That's the point I wanted to make here. So in addition to, excuse me, working with all these different companies, we integrate with a number of common accounting systems. That's the method we took because there's not a specific industry we focus on. It's any business that has AP. So we integrate with NetSuite, Sage 50, Intact, QuickBooks, Xero, and of course Great Plains. So if you're on Great Plains but you're not sure if you're going to stay on there forever, you can still use MineralTree in the future. And the reason that we're here today is just to kind of talk about what accounts payable is and how we can help. Main point to just keep in mind as we get started here is that we don't live in a paper-based data entry world at all. It's accounts payable for some reason got forgotten when it comes to the way we automated everything else that comes through our business. And we're here to solve that problem and talk to you about why it's so important to get away from manually processing your AP. It's more than just the time that it takes with keying in bills, which I'm sure you don't want to do. It's also the concerns around security. It's also the concerns around making payments on time and making sure you're using the most valuable methods to pay your bills. And that's what we help with. So in addition to the time it takes, when it comes to getting approvals, you know what I mean, a lot of people that I talk to, when they talk about their accounts payable process, they realize it's just like a lot of emailing, texting, and going back and forth between desks to get bills approved. And, you know, there's not really an easy way to keep track of that, especially if you're processing over 50 bills a month. You're getting things left and right, and you're waiting for people to sign off if people are out of the office or whatever it might be. We can absolutely help with that. And then also just tie the work that's involved with paying your vendors in all these different ways. A lot of people, I'm so shocked to hear every time I get on the call how many checks they're still processing. So in your own personal life, I think you could probably count the number of checks you're processing manually on one hand. So why haven't we changed that for our business? We're trying to get towards that. There are going to be some vendors that you will still have to pay for with check with our tools, which thankfully we do support check payments, which you can do. But we make it as easy as possible to send ACH payments out to your vendors and credit card payments and wire and virtual card. So regardless of how your vendor is being paid, you can use our tool to pay them. And in addition to saving you time, we will make it easier in terms of in terms of saving money, both hard costs and soft costs when it comes to processing AP. And I will talk about that here in just a second. So the general idea of how MineralTree works is we integrate with Great Plains. We use the eConnect connector, and it's a super easy setup. It takes around an hour. And then once we integrate with Great Plains, that's when all your information about accounts payable will populate MineralTree. So when you're getting started with our tool, you don't have to start from scratch and kind of type in all your different vendors and all that good stuff and spend a lot of your time just doing that. Once we sync up MineralTree and Great Plains, your vendor information, your open bills, your chart of accounts comes over. And then moving forward, you will submit your bills into our product either by emailing them in or scanning them in, and we will do a capture and review process. So we'll do OCR first to capture the bills, which I'm sure you're not surprised to hear will capture like 60% of the bills, maybe 70, it doesn't matter. And then after the majority of your bill is captured, we'll do human review to make sure that the bill is correctly captured, to make sure there's no mistakes, to make sure that if there's any handwritten notes that we pick those up, and then we can capture up to 100 line items, so we'll save as much time as possible. From the capture piece, what we will do is route it for approval. So this is the point where your AP person, they log in to MineralTree, they see what came in, they finish the coding on some of the bills, they review the POs that are in Great Plains because they're showing up in MineralTree, and they kind of finish the matching process, kind of finish up the coding, and then after the coding is done, you can route it for approval to your different colleagues, and they can sign off electronically. So especially with Great Plains, this is a huge feature because I know that when you guys post batches of bills in GP, you cannot make changes to them. So this is a way to electronically keep track of your bills and make sure everything is correctly coded before anything ever gets posted, and you have to kind of start from the beginning if you need to make a change. Then you, after the bills are approved, you can go ahead and post however you want to in batches one by one, and then you can queue up a payment batch in our product. In our product, you will be able to send payments out in any way and still follow the same format. Super simple. And when you do make payments in our product, we update Great Plains for you. So think of this as a very, very robust, easy to use bill pay solution built kind of for Great Plains, built specifically for you. It is a separate browser from GP, but it does everything. It does update everything in GP for you, so you don't ever have to do any work twice, which is what we're trying to get away from. And then there's a few pieces of our product that do make us very unique. I know, I'm very well aware that there's so many different AP automation tools out there. We're the first people to say that, and that's why we like to focus on what makes us a great product for the company specifically. So a lot of businesses, they do a lot of payment methods, so you can follow the same payment method, the same process regardless of how you're paying your bills, and you can choose how you want to pay your bills as well. So if you have some vendors that want check or ACH or wire, you always can pick that way. A lot of our competitors do take away that control. The integration is huge because it's like an hour setup. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure you haven't seen a tool with GP recently that takes around an hour to get synced up. So we do that very well. And we also use our clients' bank accounts to send payments. So when we send out checks for you, when we send out ACHs for you, you don't see a MineralTree bulk debit for $80,000 coming out of your bank account and then vendors getting checks with MineralTree on them. We just print the checks exactly how you want them, and they go to the vendor, and when your vendor cashes it is when you see it come out of your bank account. So it still makes sure that if for some reason a check gets lost or something like that, you guys can see that and void the check or call your bank and do a stop check and just get a new one out. You don't have to go through any third party. Our capture is great, obviously, with that human review. That's very unique to us. And then virtual cards, that's a very big thing that we do. Especially if your company has American Express, please request a demo after this call or request a call from us, and we will show you exactly how MineralTree will be able to make it easy for you to pay your vendors with American Express at no cost at all. American Express, depending on the type of account you have, will actually pay for everything. So don't miss out on that opportunity. And obviously statement credits, rewards, points back, cash back, that is something that we can get you to so that you can go from paying to pay your bills by purchasing checks and printing them and mailing them out to getting paid to pay your bills by getting statement credit for every payment you make. So there's a few different roles here that we have. The accounting manager, that's going to be the first main user. They're going to have their own application where they have access to all the bills. They route for approval. They create payment runs. Invoice approvers are going to be very limited. Those are people who are outside of finance that just kind of sign off on bills. And payment authorizers are people like CFOs and CEOs who actually release the check run. So main reason I wanted to focus on this was to show you that even though you're automating your accounts payable, you're not losing any control. Whatever specific tasks you want people to do, if your CEO still wants to see every single payment, they can still do that. If your AP person still wants to review every single bill before it goes into JP, they can still do that. We're just going to cut out the time and the manual work that's involved with doing this. So I'm just going to pop over into this other screen so I can show you a little bit about the product, because I think it's very important that you guys just get an idea of what it looks like. And if you do want to see a demo, if it looks great for you, then please give me a call. It does take around 30 minutes to an hour to do a demo, so I can focus on the great features. So that's why I wasn't going to go into that today. So this is just the home screen that shows you the GL cache sticking over from GP, aging graph of your bills. This is the coding screen where you can see the PDF of the bill and you can see exactly what we picked up, and you can edit anything that you want. And then this is just kind of the main screen where you can see all the different bills that are waiting either to be paid or posted into GP. So you can do everything from this one place and create batches, make partial payments, schedule payments, super simple. And these are the emails that you're going to get, your approvers, when they need to approve a bill. So they don't even have to log into MineralTree, which is great. They can just click this review button, and it takes them directly to the PDF of the bill they need to see, and they can approve it or reject it or add notes. So if you have trouble getting approvers or have trouble getting people to respond to emails, get away from that. You don't have to worry about that as much. And then this is the their screen for approving multiple bills at once, and then the payment authorizer. This is going to be pretty big. This is for your CFO who's going to be logging in to review payments. They can see all the different bills that were sent to them, see the recent payments that were made to them, approve payments, reject them back to you, show you who approved them, show the documents, and they can approve batches if you guys have hundreds and hundreds of checks that you send out. Instead of signing every check one by one, they can hit approve all or approve and send those checks out all within a click of a button very quickly. So that is a little bit about how MineralTree will be able to help you, and just a little bit about the signs. If you're not sure whether your company's there or not in terms of whether you guys need an AP automation solution, this should help you kind of gauge where you are. It says 100 payments a month. You should consider doing it, but usually I say 50 because 50 checks a month is enough to probably taking up enough time for you to not want to sign things manually. And then also, all right, oh sorry. And then also just if you're at a place where you're going to have to hire people soon to keep up with the volume, that's a good time. And then if you're just missing out on those things in terms of your finance department, if you're losing time because it's getting sucked into AP, that is a perfect time to automate because we can save you that time while still giving you control. So, like I said, please request a demo after this. Give us a call, and we're more than happy to show you everything with the product. I'm more than happy to help. All right?
All right. Thank you, Sarah. And we will now move on to our next presenter. That is Zubin. And Zubin, I'm going to give you control.
All right. Just waiting there. Now presenter, and just not seeing the share screen button anymore. Let's see, share my screen.
Yep, it's coming up.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zubin Gidwani. I'm the founder of Dynamic Budgets. I used to be a GP customer just like you. I had the unfortunate pleasure of being the financial analyst and assistant controller and financial systems manager for a publicly traded company out in Hawaii, and at our peak we had about 600 departments under management and had the fun pleasure of generating 600 Excel file templates, sending those out to the managers and then waiting for my inbox to blow up as they started to come back in. What we've done is built an application to exclusively for GP. We've actually now branched out to Dynamic Nav as well. But I'm going to walk you through the experience of what you'll see after an installation of about an hour and a half time. Biggest differentiation between us and the competition is speed of implementation. I was so frustrated by the cost and the pain and the complexity of all the other solutions that we built a brand new solution from the ground up. We've been out in the marketplace for about 7 years. We work with customers ranging in size from about 10 departments up to about 1,000 departments. We have a few outliers with about 1,500 companies and about 30,000 cost centers. So we can certainly scale up if you're larger. Day in, day out, we install the product in about an hour, hour and a half time. We train our end users, the finance team, on how to use the product, and we move into the product in about 5 hours for the average size customer. We compete against solutions that will quote you 200 plus hours to implement and configure their products. We looked at 200 hours as just absolute customer abuse. It should not be that painful to set up and configure the product. Again, average customer for us is out the door maybe 5 to 10 hours. If you're a complex healthcare organization, hospitals with lots of driver-based formulas, etc., we would probably recommend about 20 to 30 hours tops. We simply cannot invent more than about 30 hours of consulting. Let me go ahead and log into the program. We support Active Directory to keep your IT team happy, so all you have to do is single click, sign on, and you're into the product. I'm going to go and open up another version that I had with some screens already open. I'm going to show you that we are live linked to GP for reporting purposes. So if we wanted to run a report and see our actuals, we can actually go ahead and choose our company, choose our particular ledger that we want to pull the data from, and hit search. I've got a plain laundry list of all of my accounts here on screen. If I was curious what made up a particular set of numbers, I can actually click on that month and drill down to either month or year-to-date transaction details. If we want to spruce this up and take a look at this with a little bit of formatting, I could look at this from a company totals perspective. I might have had a format that was summarizing all of my accounts by main categories. Or maybe I wanted to look at this from a division-department type of perspective. Admin, ops, and sales, drill down into any one of my areas. These are my individual departments within the admin division. Get out into my account categories. Or maybe I wanted to look at my account categories by the divisions. If I'd gone up here to my divisions only, my org roll-ups only. I can see my payroll. Notice that I only ran the report one time. All this data is in memory, and we have basically been slicing and dicing it without having to regenerate the report. If you'd done something equivalent in Management Reporter, it might have taken a couple minutes per each one of these reports to generate. If we're constrained to a pivot table style of report formats in this screen, but I'll show you that we can actually do custom reports with custom row layouts to look a lot like Management Reporter. A lot of our customers are asking us, do we have the ability to replace Management Reporter? I'd say yes from an internal or informal perspective. but not necessarily, we don't necessarily want to generate the board level financials, but we have the ability to generate financials that look close enough to what you're doing for your internal purposes. And what we have is customers calling back and say, Zubin, you know what, one of my managers asked me to rerun March financials. You know what I told her? No. You've got access to dynamic budgets. You can run your own reports and stop bugging us. That's the type of impact that we're having on our customers, is that we have the ability to allow them to have self-service application, self-service functionality to cut down on inbound requests to the finance team. So in here I could have had account headers, I could have had individual account references, or pull back on summarized transactions. I can control the row layout and create a variance report. If I was curious what made up one of these variances, I could actually click on the particular set of values. If I wanted to click on my variance here, we show a split screen where we show the actual transactions in the upper half of the screen, and we show the full annual budget in the lower half of the screen. So ideally, that user would be able to identify why this variance occurred. Maybe there were multiple line items in the budget, but only one line item occurred for the actuals. Was it due to a timing difference, or did we have a change of thought and we're not going to be processing those expenses this year? Ideally, they come back in here, click on the notes, and they can enter an explanation as to why they were over/under for the month. In form of accounting, not only is it informing the financial analysts, we have that information at the quarter-end reporting, but the next time they go to budget their account, those notes are sitting for them at the bottom of the screen, and they can make better informed decisions the next time around. So okay, basically, as they're going through, and they might have a blank slate here trying to figure out what they want to do for their forecast or their next year budget, they might be able to look down here to the bottom of the screen and say, okay, did I leave myself any comments? And we did. We had an emergency equipment failure. We had to do a one-time expense. So no need to copy that expense into year 2 because it was a one-off expense and we're good for the next 5 years. So that's the type of reporting we have. We are live linked to GP. Nobody has to, from finance or accounting, finance or IT, has to do anything to enable that reporting or to refresh the reporting. You're not importing transactions into dynamic budgets. We are live linked, so if we happen to pull back, we could bring back a monthly transaction review report for a month or an entire year, and this information is immediately available on screen. If I wanted to drill down into my expenses, I've got my individual transactions. If there was something that looked out of place, if I didn't know why this particular transaction had been recorded, I can actually right-click on that particular account or that transaction, copy with headers, and send it to the accountant who posted the batch. That information is here on screen. We have a journal entry number, so that end user can now inform accounting. Accounting can jumpstart the process for the reclass. So I'm going to back up here and jump over into our budgeting. So we've done our 5 minutes of token discussion about budgeting, reporting, but we are a budgeting tool. First and foremost, think of us as sort of the Swiss Army knife of budgeting. So I have got the ability to come in here and look at my budgets. We can relabel any of these menu items to make it a little bit more user-friendly. We can hide all the menu items that you're not using. Some of our customers have asked us to just show enter 2018 budget here, take that report, move it off the reports menu, and stick it over here and say, here's your 12-month financials, and here's your comparative entries. If we want to do simple budgeting, like every other budget tool offers, we have our basic budget entry screen. And I can come in here, and if I wanted to input my numbers, I can just start typing. I could have all my accounts on screen for the department that I've searched on. I can specify which departments, which users have access to which departments. I can copy and paste like in Excel. I can copy that value. I can grab a range of cells. I can hit paste with my keyboard or the Control-C and V keyboard shortcuts. If I wanted to do some math in here, I could do 500 plus 750 plus 2500. Ultimately, we'd like them to come back in here and describe what they were doing. 500 monthly and another 3500 in March for X and 750 also for Y. I don't like this style of budgeting because all of a sudden you have to read through a paragraph of data to try to figure out what they were doing in their cells. I don't know what's wrong now, if the paragraph is wrong or the line item is wrong, because this number does not match what they were trying to describe over here. They said March expenses, but it's in February. What we would prefer them to do is itemize the account by clicking on the account number, drilling down, and coming in and just simply explaining themselves. So CPR training, and we've got leadership development and harassment awareness. And we just come in here, simply itemize our expenses, say I'm going to do $1,200 workshop over here. I've got leadership development off-site retreat over here for $5,000. And we've got the harassment awareness workshop in June for another $1,000. You can be much more terse with your explanations. It's much more sort of intuitive, and it's a lot clearer and easier to understand here. If we wanted to go into greater details, this screen can support some math operators. We're trying to control the experience, no offense, but we work with we're trying to provide a sophisticated tool to work with the unwashed masses, to try to mass deploy this to all your department heads and give them something that they cannot break. If we wanted to do math, we can do rate times unit equals cost with math operators plus, minus, multiply, divide, and equals. Simplified math such that they don't get it wrong. $250 a month. And we've got 5 headcount in our department. And if I want to bump up and bring in some interns in the middle of the year, I can bring in my interns. And I've got a variable headcount times a base training cost and see my variable rate times unit cost over the months. We can dig a little bit deeper. We can unlock the details of GP and make that available to the end users. They do not have to be licensed users to use our product. They don't have to be GP users. And we have an unlimited user license. The more the merrier. If they wanted to see how much they spent with each of their vendors last year, so if you have IT maintenance contracts and they have recurring annual maintenance contracts, but they don't know how much is owed to which vendor and in which month it's due, you could do this on their behalf, or they could do it on their own. If you teach them, they can go ahead and add that data, bring it back on screen.
30 seconds, Stephen.
Okay. So we have different styles of working with the interfacing with the data. We have custom worksheets where we might want to bring back a multi-year comparison, then drill down into our accounts. We have an integration with Power BI for advanced analytics. So if you want to do reporting and visualizations, we can do that. Very detailed payroll modules with lots and lots of different types of calculations. We have allocations, lots and lots of styles of allocations, import, export utilities, and forecast builders. So a lot of things that we can do. One thing that a lot of our competition can't do is give you a back-end SQL interface to do some heavier lifting that we can. More than happy to do a deeper dive demo with any of you offline. Feel free to contact us for a free trial of the product, 30-day trial of the product, or we can arrange for about an hour, hour and a half deep dive walkthrough of the product. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Zubin. And next presenter is going to be Mary Miller for QuickTag. And Mary, I'm going to give you control now, and just make sure your phone line is open.
Okay, Jason?
Oh, we hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So thanks, everybody, for sticking around for this morning's webinar. And the topic of this segment for the next 12 minutes, we're going to cover a little bit about why your organization should consider going paperless and how you can automate not only AP automation into your business process, but also expense management and any other business process that's driven by a document. Now, in today's world, oftentimes in our businesses, those things still start as paper. And the reality of that is that that's a very expensive business proposition. The box that you're looking at on the screen today, friends, can cost up to 10 times the cost of that actual box. Why? Because every piece of paper that enters your organization can be copied, shared, rescanned, recopied, and printed multiple times. Research suggests up to 10 times per piece of paper in your organization. That adds up very quickly. Research suggests it costs up to 31 times the cost of that actual paper that enters your organization. So the topic for the conversation is going paperless and transforming your business such that any document that enters your organization should first come in digitally, whether that's an invoice or an expense report or a contract or a vendor record or an employee document, you name it, there is a place for it to become digital. And so with QuickTag, we are a core document management system and a platform that then expands to workflow. So companies come to us first to what we call make the paper go away. And so by that we have a three-step simple process to automate any business process. We capture the documents digitally as early as possible in the process. We integrate very deeply with GP and other ERP systems, but specifically today we're going to focus on GP. And then we enable you to automate and route documents around for approval, whether that's an invoice, an expense report, a time off request, a contract, a marketing project, a sales order, you name it, it can be automated using QuickTag. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to highlight a few things for you here, and again, I'd be happy to do a deep dive demo and discovery with your organization so that we really understand your pain points. Are your challenges around the timing? Are your challenges around the visibility into documents once they enter your organization? Or is it simply that you look outside of your office and you've got rows and rows of file cabinets? We have customers that have wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling file cabinets and shelves of boxes of paper that are just, let's face it, difficult to track, difficult to find, and when somebody comes along, audit time, end of the month, or just day-to-day, hey, what happened to that fill-in-the-blank piece of paper? Now we're sending somebody on a scavenger hunt. Nobody wants to spend their day that way. So with QuickTag, we have a very deep integration within GP, and we're directly embedded into 79 different screens. What does that mean? Well, it means from within GP, you have an additional menu that comes to life. I've got it highlighted here with a little dialog box on the right-hand side of your screen. You have option to tag, view, and search documents that live in QuickTag that are visible for you in GP. This is what the tag dialog box looks like. So let's say we've already processed a payables transaction entry. We've routed it for approval. We've created the payables transaction entry, and the document lives there. Well, somewhere along the way, 2 days, a week later, maybe you have additional documentation that has come in related to that. Maybe somebody sent an email, hey, this is a change order. Hey, can you make that general ledger adjustment? Can you enter this journal entry? Can you add this packing slip or whatever? And you can add those documents just by dragging and dropping them onto this little barcode here, thereby adding to your digital footprint, your digital record of this particular transaction, associating all of the documents, whether that's an email, a PDF, a Word file, whatever, a video, we don't care. Whatever the format of the file is, you can associate it with that transaction using the QuickTag connector. We have a very light technical footprint in that nothing is actually stored in GP, however, because you don't want to take up any of your technical resources, your limited processing power and availability of space that's available to you inside of GP. Everything is stored in the QuickTag database on the QuickTag server that's just got a real-time direct connection to GP. So the first area that people tend to start is within the AP automation space because that's where they have the greatest amount of pain and typically, let's face it, the smallest team manually managing all of these steps in the process and they have no visibility into it. So they need to have the ability to create payables transaction entries automatically with that document workflow history and also be able to relate and associate additional documents with any transaction, again, across 79 different screens, 9 different modules, banking, employees, vendor records, payables transactions, sales order, customer records, and the like. So when you think of one area of your business that needs to get rid of the file cabinets, the most logical next step then is to look down the hall and say, hey, where else could we be adding efficiency? Where else can we provide this additional visibility? And of course, when you begin to automate that process, you want a tool that's very easy for your team to use and to adopt. So with QuickTag as the AP automation front end, the first step looks and feels and functions just like GP. From the minute that you enter and look up a company ID, you don't need to log in and log out of GP. We have a real-time connection to that. So you select the company in GP that the vendor invoices for, and the majority of the rest of the header information is going to populate for you automatically, and you have the real-time lookup to be able to update GL codes, GL distributions, and then you can save it as a template. So the next time you encounter that invoice or an invoice from that vendor, it's saved for you automatically. So we want to accelerate your accounting process. We want to make it easy for your team to have visibility and access to all of the documents related to those transactions, and again, 79 other sorts of documents within your business organization. So what does the process look like? Well, we just took a look at the screen where the AP manager kicks that off, and I too used to be an AP manager, and I used to be a GP client, so I know what that's like. I came into a stack of invoices every day that I had to manually process and key into the system, and God forbid something was sitting on somebody's desk for too long. We're talking 35 to 40 days for an average payment approval process. Meanwhile, what is your accounting team doing? They're getting angry phone calls from vendor. Hey, where's my payment? What's the status of that? When am I going to get this processed? And what are you doing? You're getting up from your desk, you're running down the hall, you're looking in file cabinets. Very inefficient use of your time. So now you want to have invoices sent straight in, ideally emailed directly from your vendors, into an experience for step one that looks and feels just like the ERP system that we just looked at together. And then you want to make it easy for those department managers, finance managers, project managers, other areas of the business to email approve or online approve one or many invoices at a given time. And certainly if this wasn't an invoice, let's say it was, again, a time off request or a contract or something like that, you want one system where people can easily access, edit, and approve and add additional related documents if that's what's necessary for your business. You want that seamless integration where you can click and tag and view and search from within your ERP system, but looking into the QuickTag system where you're going to have access to all of the documents that are stored and managed, very closely related to and associated with all of those screens in GP and or other areas of your business. And then ultimately with the AP automation conclusion, you want that payable transaction entry to be created. And of course, you want an easy way for people to drill down into the invoices that are paid and their audit trail and their workflow history and that sort of things so that you can easily get through your compliance and audit timeline as well. Now add to that the next most closely related process to that customers often extend to once they have AP automation kind of under control is expense management. So what happens today? Well, people are out and about and they are collecting receipts, and when I used to travel and work for a company that was headquartered overseas, I would collect my receipts, I would manually create an Excel spreadsheet at the end of every month, and I would staple my receipts. Hopefully I remembered to make a copy of all of them, and I would staple my receipts, put it in an envelope, mail it to our U.S. headquarters, who would review it and do whatever they needed to do. Then they would put it in an interoffice mail and or a FedEx envelope, mail it across the pond to corporate headquarters. Meanwhile, I still haven't gotten any confirmation that my expense report has even been received, let alone processed by anybody in corporate accounting, so I have no visibility into that. And then I wait until someday a check shows up or a direct deposit shows up that my expenses have now been, in fact, reimbursed. Well, enter the world of automating and digitizing that process. Now I capture a receipt with my phone while I'm sitting at the restaurant, at the coffee shop, or have just printed something or got my hotel folio or whatever. I take a picture with my phone or I ask it to be emailed to me directly. I forward it into QuickTag where it has the visual image of that receipt for me, where I do, again, some minimal data entry and tell it what department I'm traveling for, what was that receipt expense incurred for, and then I can get an email notification of both the expense report once it gets created by QuickTag and or, hey, you're missing a receipt. If it happened to be a corporate card, QuickTag's going to email me and say, hey, you've got 3 receipts, 3 expenses that need to have receipts submitted for. So again, a little bit of online data entry and email notifications to remind me and chase me, so my AP team doesn't have to do that, of course. And then I tell QuickTag, these are the date ranges that I want to have my expense report created. It does it for me automatically, as you can see on the screen here. That then gets routed for approval, just like your invoices would, and or in an online experience, as you see at the top of this screen. And then the back office part for your accounting team, instant credit card reconciliation. You upload the credit card statement from whatever bank or vendor you're using for your expenses, and it automatically reconciles, hey, I've got receipts for these, I don't have receipts for those, go email the user. What used to happen in our experience is that our accounting team would get the statement from the corporate card vendor at the end of the month. They would cut it into little strips for the individual users and then give just that piece to the respective users, copying it, of course, so they had a master record in the accounting team, and then deliver those pieces of paper to the individual users and say, hey, can you go find these receipts, write on the receipts, tell me what they're for. And it was a paper nightmare, and it was a timing disaster. I don't know how we ever got the corporate cards paid on time. Thanks, Jason. So accelerate all of that, automate your expense management just like you would your AP process. And what's great about that is even your non-GP users have the ability to drill in, get audit trail, invoice date, check number, vendor number, all sorts of search criteria. And once you've mastered that, you can automate literally any process in your organization, contracts, marketing, sales orders, and the like. And I like to share this QuickTag family snapshot. Of course, we can't fit them all on this screen, but I do give you a quick snapshot that any company of any size, if you have a paper problem, chances are you need to do something about digitizing and automating that. So with QuickTag, we've been doing this for 21 years. We were the first to integrate as deeply as we do in the Microsoft Dynamics space, and we have 120,000 business users around the globe. And literally, you can use our software to automate any process. Here's just a quick look at some of the technology integrations that we also include. And we'll come back to that when we have time for questions. Thanks, Jason.
Great, thank you. And we will now move on to Data Masons and Glenn McPeak. Glenn, I'm going to give you control now. And looks like your line is open. Glenn, I am not hearing you.
Okay, I want to make sure you can hear me now.
I hear you now, although you're a little quiet.
Okay, I'll just try to speak up. All right,
Great.
I'm here to talk about our solution that helps companies integrate their entire supply chain with electronically, and we use technology that's referred to as EDI, or electronic data interchange. Our organization is certified on the Dynamics GP platform, but we're also certified on all of the Dynamics ERP solutions. So, you know, of course, there's always organizations that might have reasons to migrate to other platforms, so that's one thing we make particularly easy to occur. I thought it was best to explain what we do and what the value is by showing you this graphic, and the fact that our platform, which we call Vantage Point EDI, sits between the outside world and the Dynamics GP product. And we connect data into and out of GP without business users having to do any additional work related to EDI. So we talked, you've heard some presentations on getting data into GP more quickly. We're the same premise, but we go to all these different type of relationships. So if you have, if you're, you know, exchanging documents with a bank, like you know, payment remittances or lockbox documents, or you're doing credit approvals, etc. We connect those types of transactions. If you use outside warehouses, we connect outside warehouses back and forth into GP, suppliers, customers, transport companies, customs agencies. So a lot of different touch points with the outside world into and out of Dynamics GP. And, we enable that by supporting 72 different types of document transactions into and out of the GP platform. So there's pervasive connection into GP, in and out. The implementation of the solution is a setup process, and we deliver it in a way that does not impact GP. There's no customizations in GP. A lot of ISVs introduce, dexterity code, or they change the database to accommodate what their solutions do. We don't do that. We sit on the outside and we feed data in and out of the solution seamlessly, again, without making any changes into the platform. Now, EDI is something, as I mentioned earlier, that connects business processes electronically into and out of the system. And ERP process flows are often referred to in terms of order-to-cash cycles, from the point of receiving a purchase order through the collection of money, procure-to-pay, et cetera. And so what this screen illustrates is the idea that the VantagePoint platform and Data Masons is very much aligned to the way that you use an ERP system, or a company uses an ERP system. And so this screen just shows some of the business processes around the quote-to-cash process, because we can support from the point that maybe you receive a quote on to bid, and then ultimately result in a purchase order, to the shipment process, to the invoice process, et cetera. And you can see within those tiles, the breakdown of these processes are small. And the idea there is to create these little work tasks that can be incorporated into what we call workflows. And those workflows are configured by your team, to execute based on events or based on schedules that make sense for you. So the screen that you're looking at is the monitoring screen that tells you what's happening inside the automation system at any time. And the idea is to have workflows, and these are named in a way that you can easily understand. So for example, a PO workflow inbound would be the process of going out, getting purchase orders from the outside world, integrating them into GP, and then maybe doing other processes such as emailing reports or those sorts of automation steps. You can set up any report in the system to be sent also on a schedule, so your team can be aware if there are things that might have fallen through the cracks, because VantagePoint does a very good job of auditing things. So, if you have for example, customer service team and an order entry process, that maybe you'll get an order, you're not sure what to do with it, it doesn't get entered, deferred for questions for someone later on, and they might fall through the crack. So in the world of EDI, fortunately, there's a means by which we can audit everything, make sure everything that comes in finds a home inside of GP. If it can't, for whatever reason, your team's alerted immediately when it happens, and then we have follow-up reports that audit the process to make sure that the process completed properly. Now, earlier I talked about life cycles, the idea of a quote-to-cash life cycle, procure-to-pay, and other types of life cycles. And we drive that home when you look at this screen, which is accessible from within GP. And that, all it does is it opens up a link to the transaction process lifecycle that exists for that particular document. Now, in my case, this lifecycle process, it's part of what we call a transaction lifecycle explorer, shows a purchase order that came in on May 29th. It was followed by a purchase order acknowledgement that was sent out about 7 minutes later, a request for a warehouse to ship product. We received which is our 3PL warehouse. We shipped, we created an outbound ship notice that was sent to our customer, which in my case is Target. And then 9 minutes after the original PO was received, we generated 2 invoices, one that went to the customer and a copy went to our brokerage partner. And so it gives you an idea of the fact that we can pull all this data, which is quite valuable, together into one centralized place. The buttons let you drill into the data, and it presents that data in a report format that you can easily understand. It acknowledges it understands the acknowledgement process. So there's in the world of EDI, there's checks and balances to make sure everybody received the transaction, that you sent the transaction, which makes things like invoice collection much easier because you know that they received the invoice. They can't say, no, we didn't get the invoice. You know, you have proof that it was received. So there's a lot of power and a lot of value in what you get from this. So to recap some of the advantages of our platform and our solution. First off, there's no customizations made to GP. We support virtually any ISV. So if you're using someone for warehouse management, or even if it's not, let's say, a known ISV, we can pretty much support anything for when it comes to shipping and packaging, etc. The process in general is just very simple. Cost of ownership is predictable and affordable. We don't charge you transaction fees every time you transmit or receive a document. Simple migration to other ERP platforms in the Dynamics family. And automation is a really big deal for us. And delivering a true management by exception experience. So imagine taking the bulk of your data entry process out of the organization and just have data flow in and out of the system, and have your knowledge workers alerted when these issues occur. So that's what we call management by exception. We offer flexible service levels, including a level we call managed services, where you actually have a person who's assigned to your account who becomes almost part of your organization, like a part-time employee, and they handle everything related to your account. They know who you are, you know who they are, they participate in all your initiatives, and they deal with all the back and forth you might have with customers, partners, etc. And they take care of everything and make sure nothing falls through the cracks. And we're staffed by teams with a lot of deep GP experience, so you don't have to worry about folks that don't understand how that system works. Just very quickly, the types of industries that we serve, and we're particularly well suited: consumer packaged goods and to retail, food manufacturing, distribution. There's a lot of developments in that industry. We're always on top of it and making sure that it works well. Automotive and industrial equipment. So, you know, we run into companies using GP that manufacture. They're involved in the automotive supply chain, or perhaps they do work with John Deere or Caterpillar. We handle that. And pharma and life sciences. So these are industries that we see a lot of our customers utilizing our system. So that's my presentation, Jason. So got it in under time.
All right, thank you, Glenn. At this point, we have some time for audience questions. If you haven't entered yours yet, please do use the Q&A and let us know what you are wondering about. Let us know which company, which product you're interested in, and we'll make sure to get that to the right presenter. So I'm going to look at, sort of jump into the questions that have already come in, and we'll get to as many as we have time for here in the next 6 minutes or so. So the first question, Glenn, I'll put this one back to you. It's asking, can we do our own mapping?
Yes, as I mentioned, we provide different levels of service, and we enable self-sufficiency of our customers. So if they want to do their own compliance mapping and integration, and we'll get them started, we'll train them how to do it, and they can go ahead and do it themselves.
All right, let's see here. Sarah, a question for you. Do you have multiple levels of approvals for invoices and payments?
Yes, we do. For both invoices and for payments, you have up to 4 tiers of approvals that you can set up based on amount, dimension, vendor, whatever you need. And you can have multiple people in each tier, and we have unlimited users, so you don't have to worry about hitting any limits.
All right. Dynamic budgeting question. What differentiates your product from other budgeting solutions?
What really differentiates us is primarily the speed of implementation. We're typically a lower cost product of the offerings. We compete against CPM solutions, which usually come in at 6 figures plus. But really the cost savings is on the product, but on the implementation time, where we're coming in at about 5 to 10 hours to get you up and running. We've had customers deploy as little as a week, when you don't have to incur 200 hours of implementation time.
All right. I want to make a final call for questions here. I have one more lined up. I also want to remind folks that we do have a very brief survey that will pop up after you leave today. If you could take a few seconds to fill that out, we greatly appreciate the feedback, as do our presenters. And this one is for Mary, asking, do QuickTag users have to be GP users?
Yeah, and the answer is no. They can be independent. Of course, there's an integration option for customers to be both, but it's not required. They can be outside users of QuickTag and not be GP users.
All right, let me just check the question queue once more here. I think we are through it with a couple minutes to spare. So Glenn, Mary, Sarah, Zubin, thank you all so much for taking the time for joining us today. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
And thanks to everyone in the audience. I hope this was a valuable experience for you. We appreciate any feedback you can provide. And we have recorded today's event. We'll be sharing that soon as well with more follow-up information. And I'm sorry, let me just put up some contact information on this final slide here. If you do want to reach out to any of our presenters, please do use those email addresses. With that, we will conclude today's event. Have a great day, everybody.